Hello everyone, Nordic Beast here, and welcome back to the Shipyard. And today we are joined by DHR Mike.
Hello.
So I'm feeling a little shitty today. So last night, Mike, I'm not sure if you noticed, but I was on like TS pretty much most of the night with my friend Grish.
I saw you were on TeamSpeak. Yes, I eventually even moved you to the idle channel, considering you were idling in the recording channel, and other people needed it eventually.
Yeah, I was quite idle. We were trying to record a drunken episode of Insurgency, which is a really hardcore first-person shooter, and I drank a little too much, and I got pretty sick last night. So, yeah, I got too excited. It was taking them a while to get ready and all that, so I ended up drinking, and I was already like half a drink in, and it was a mix of rum and an energy drink. Poor choice.
Yeah, rum and yet you do realize that rum and energy drink, it's like taking something that makes you slow and then taking something that makes you hyperactive and then mixing those two.
Yeah, so
generally not a wise idea.
Well, what's funny is actually in some of it I was doing pretty well. At one point I was like 40 kills in 3. And I kept yelling at all our team members. I'm like, I can barely sit up in my chair. How am I kicking all your asses? And Grish was actually doing really well at one point, too. Oh, no. Oh, no. Hold on. Ah. I alt-tabbed out. I wonder what that's going to look like in the recording. Huh. Whoops. But, so yeah. So I am feeling a little under the weather today. But I figured I'd show off some things. And since Mike's here, I can get his opinion on them, too.
Yes.
So you want to drop down here? My little hangar. So, the first ship that's going to be right here in the middle, this was actually going to be my original entry into the fighter contest, but I didn't submit it. It had some issues.
What kind of issues?
Well, originally, like if you look where the rockets are now, under the landing gear, originally they were right next to the large thruster on the front. They were on either side on the bottom block. And even if I was, say, sitting still, for example, I could shoot them and sometimes they would just explode and destroy the thruster. Like, I didn't even have to be moving and they would do it. And it pissed me off. And the Gatling guns were, like, right here on the side, right above them, which that wasn't too bad. But I decided to move them into the thruster pods there, and I think it looks a lot better.
Generally, I've noticed, like with rocket pods like these, that it's generally wise to even possibly have these ones sticking out one block slightly further, considering they always have a tendency, when the rocket spawns in front of them, that it doesn't exactly spawn exactly in front of it. It spawns in a rough range that is roughly one block big, but it can still hit a block around it.
Yeah. Well, so far I haven't had any trouble with it where it's at now. Well, because usually I don't maneuver when shooting rockets. Even if I have rockets in a good spot, usually I won't maneuver and shoot at the same time, just because of how twitchy they can be. That, and I want a really good accurate shot with rockets when I'm trying to hit somebody. So, oh, and actually, if you notice, this is reactor powered, and you can reach the reactor from on top, which I'm quite happy with. No batteries in this bad boy. Are you there?
I just realized due to my own yesterday's recording that I left the music on, so there's some music in there now.
No worries.
So, Space Engineer music.
Oh. Yeah, sometimes I think it's on right now for me. I keep it low. But yeah, so per the rules, I had tried to make it no batteries at all, so it runs on one large reactor. And it's also designed to fly first person. So as you notice, it has a camera right above where the reactor is on the back of the cockpit. It also has one on the tail. It has one next to the connector on the bottom, and then it has one in the nose. So, whoop, whoop, whoop. There we go.
It's floating away.
Yep.
But yeah, I must say, I personally always, like, I don't mind using third person in situations, but I always want a ship to have the first person option. At least that's my personal preference.
Well, you know, since you guys were going with hardcore settings for the contest, my idea was I wanted a ship that could be flown in first person if you decided to shut down third person view. And I think it's better to be prepared than, you know, not be prepared. So, the guns are fully conveyed, the rockets obviously aren't. It has
can't exactly convey them.
Yeah, unfortunately. But it has a sensor with a sound block, so if anyone comes within 50 meters of it, of course it'll say enemy detected. And then I'm trying to think what else. It has the max amount of thrusters, it has the max amount of weapons with the 4 Gatlings and 2 rocket pods. And then my favorite feature though is the one large reverse thruster. This is why I designed the ship the way it is, just for the one big thruster for reverse. I really like it. So I all the features I've put in fighters before, I cram-packed into this design. So it actually is a little on the heavy side, but it's actually pretty fast and maneuverable. I'm overall happy with it, but I think the Sparrowhawk, the one I submitted, is the better performer. Like, it's a better dogfighter than this. But this thing could probably take a hell of a beating just because of how big it is. It could probably take a lot of damage. So.
Mind if I give it a test flight?
Oh no, go right ahead.
It doesn't allow me in.
Oh, I'm sorry. It must.
It considers me evil.
With its sensor, it can sense evil. There you go.
Yes, it is a racist plane.
Only
Racist
against Dutch.
plane.
Whee! Off it goes.
It has quite a nice speed to it, yeah.
Oh, thank you.
The rotation is quite nice. Now let's see how well it does if I... Ooh, it does that quite nice. I like it. Well, like, I pretty much full-on rotated its nose backwards, and I want to see, like, how quickly can it pull itself from full speed back to the different direction again, and it does that quite well compared to some fighters.
Well, I mean, it does run on 4 large thrusters and 4 small thrusters in the back, so it's about 30,000 kilograms. It gets up to about 31 if you arm it for hardcore, so you know the 1x1x1. You don't have to put it back in the hangar because I want to access the other ships. So yeah, so I mean,
in the hangar, I was just planning to park it.
Oh yeah, no worries. Just letting you know. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with this thing. I definitely like it. But
yeah, it's quite nice. I personally would say though. And I'm not entirely sure how you would do it though, but I feel like this flat side here could use a little less flatness, like maybe one single more angle block, but I'm not sure how that would work out.
Yeah, I know what you mean. You got to remember, originally the Gatling guns were here, and then the rockets were here, so it gave it a bit more detail, but then since I moved them, it kind of flattened it all out. I'm sure I could figure something out eventually, but I do see what you mean. I'm much like you and Dracul with that, where I'm not a big fan of super flat surfaces. I mean, dude, you look at like the tail and the underbelly and all that. I've got angles everywhere, angles for days.
That's how I always build my ships as well. Like, I very much like the design. One of the biggest points I would have with this design is I feel like there's something missing in these corners on both sides.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
I can't exactly put my finger on what exactly should go there.
Yeah. Alright, so I figure I'll show off the next thing I've been working on. You come in here. It's this one on the right with the 2 cockpits. I'll go ahead and turn it on. This is called the Archer. My idea behind this one is it's actually a dual-role ship. It's a flight trainer for space engineers. Since, you know, there's a lot of new people that come into the game, they don't know how to fly, neither cockpit is set up as the main cockpit. So whoever goes in first is the actual pilot, the other person will be the instructor. This is a bare-bones...
That's how space engineers still works even with the damn cockpit settings.
True. But it has a conveyor box inside, so it actually has a connector on the belly and a connector on the back, and then 1 medium cargo container, so it is a light transport that can connect to almost any kind of connector, so for the top or back, which for my design style, my fighters always have a connector.
I would suggest, if it also functions as a flight sim, also have a connector on the top. You need to know how to connect in different ways.
Oh, that is true, that is true. But it is easily modifiable, so that's probably, you could probably add that in there. That's the other design of this ship is so flexible. This is the bare bones model. There's no antenna, no beacon, nothing special about it. It runs on 14 small reactors, and they're under the cockpits. Both cockpits are conveyed to the oxygen tank, so it has 1 oxygen tank, and then both cockpits can have oxygen. And then, like... Oh, go ahead. Yep.
Oh, well, I was just about to say, personally, I have noticed that the biggest difference between the oxygen generator in small ships and oxygen tank is that the tank is just 500 kilograms lighter, which isn't that much in overall sense.
Well, to me, I don't... I don't know. I don't like the generator, because you add in the ice adds more mass, you know, and the ice can run out pretty quickly, so I prefer just the tanks, you know.
I've noticed due to a imbalance, like, if you put 500 or even 200 grams of ice in there, you're not much heavier off than the oxygen. But you do have a lot more oxygen, and you have to. The one advantage with the generator, I personally would say, is that because you have ice, it's easier to refill your ship on the go when you are flying a long distance with your smaller ship, and you find an asteroid and you dig some out with your hand drill.
True.
But I do get your point as well, where the tank is lighter, but the downside of it, again, is the more limited factor.
Well, true. Well, you got to remember, a lot of my ships, they're short-ranged. You know, the small ships, they're not going very far, and the tank could last quite a long time too.
Well, actually, lately I've been the thing I've been testing with fighters, and someone else gave me a hint on that. It might even have been you, but that's that the cockpits can hold quite a bit of oxygen.
Yes, actually, we were talking about that just the other day. Yep.
Yeah. And I was doing some more testing with that, and I almost noticed, like, with the throwaway fighters I used to build, considering I've had many models over the past where they were more meant to, they were specifically often meant to fight cargo ships. And I would literally call them the throwaway ships, as in they were armed for a single time, they were loaded for a single time, they only had a very limited amount of fuel, and often they were just annihilated by the ship, but often to the point where at least I could safely get into the cargo ship. And so it was always a cost-benefit kind of thing. Like, I have a ship that I can easily mass produce. I build a machine that could specifically print that ship quickly.
Yeah.
And I've somewhat looked into the concept of what I would do with oxygen, and honestly, I've noticed that with the throwaway fighters, I don't even need to add any oxygen tank with how quickly they're thrown away.
True. And even with just the cockpit, they still last for like half an hour or so. A lot of my welding ships, like my Rosie model, is still hooked up for oxygen in the cockpit, but with no tank. And, you know, whenever I connect to reload the cargo container, I get oxygen immediately. So it's not really that big a deal for a ship that's, you know, going to be at your base, you know. So for like construction ships, I don't even bother. But like this thing here, it's meant not only as a flight trainer, which so you might be flying for a while, but like I said, it's also meant as a light transport, and you can do almost anything with this. Like where the rear landing gear are, you can fit passenger seats there if you want. Also, there's not an overly complex, but there is a conveyor system.
I always think that ships needs more seats.
That is true. That is like your motto.
Yeah.
So, and like you said, you could always add another conveyor on top, which, like I said, there's a conveyor box in there. So, you know, and if you want, all right, I hopped in. If you want to hop in the front cockpit. Ah, dang it. I always end up owning my ships, sorry. There you go. Alright. Alright, I always gotta be careful with that lip on the way out. So as you see, like this, it flies okay. Like, it's not over the top. This ship actually might be a little on the Boris-proof side. Might be able to just, you know, Boris might not crash this ship.
I wouldn't go so far. Boris crashed into a planet that was straight in front of him in the very first video.
That is true.
I didn't mention it because I figured he realized it, but once we already hit it, I was like, well, Boris planet, considering you keep pushing.
I do plan on eventually building a Boris-proof ship one of these days. But, no, like I said, the design on this one is it's supposed to be very easy to fly, which is also why it has 4 landing gear, so that it's nice and stable when you land. And you know, even like the little side thrusters, you notice like they're covered, so it's, I don't know, it's just, I really enjoy this ship. I think it's ugly as hell, but once
it won't win a beauty contest.
No. But I think this would be a great starter ship once they fix the multiplayer code. And so you get like big servers with lots of people on there and lots of building stuff. You could get this as a starter ship, and you could do like trading runs and things like that and help people out to be able to get resources instead of just, you know, slowly going through the grind of having to build everything. But this would be a great starter ship for that. You got some cargo space, and it's an easily modified and upgraded ship. I really like it. This is the kind of ship you usually see in like spaceship games that you start with. So yeah, I like it. Oh, and actually, if you notice, it's got a little jumpstart reactor on this side.
I always like jumpstart reactors.
Well, usually I have them on the top, but I thought it would be easier just to put one on the side, so you could, you know, if you're walking around, it's easy to get to without your jetpack.
Well, I've quite often had on my designs, like where I would have it on the top, but near the connector there. There's someone in the back.
Oh, okay, I get what you mean. Yeah.
Ships.
So usually, like if you look at this fighter over here, which I'll show off here in a second, it's right behind the cockpit. That's usually my go-to place for the jumpstart reactor.
That's not a bad place. That's not a bad place either. I've done that often, like with the fighters.
Yeah.
But with construction ships, or often more ships like of this design, I often tend to do them more in the back.
Yeah. Well, so like I said, it's almost the same reasoning. I just put it there so it's easily accessed. But yeah, like a lot of my designs, since my utility ships tend to have a conveyor on the back, which is why this one has both a bottom and the back. Like I said, it's my common designs. My ships almost never have a conveyor on the top, which is why I didn't think to put one in. But usually the conveyor,
mine are generally always on the back as well. I prefer back ones, considering I've learned that, especially if you build a larger ship, for example, transporting smaller ships, I know that Space Engineers doesn't like it, but I still build for it.
Yeah.
Then I've generally noticed, due to my ships being generally somewhat more like your ships, because again, like I am even looking at the floor and I'm noticing how you and Drukul always seem to be stealing my ideas, or I'm always stealing your ideas.
Well, I got that from Drukul, actually, and I agree with his philosophy on this. Oh, it makes sense, yeah.
I started using these blocks as landing blocks, considering they didn't bend, so it was a lot more stable.
Yeah, well, and it's a pretty common practice, too. You notice a lot of Space Engineers guys do that, and it's a good idea. In fact, I was thinking about redesigning one of my carriers, because I had heavy armor as the deck. I'm thinking about redesigning it to use this instead of the heavy armor. And this is slightly lighter than the heavy armor, too.
Yeah, I've been using this, like, pretty much once they implemented these blocks, the first day that they implemented these blocks, I started using them for the landing pads. Because they were as strong as the steel blocks, but they didn't bend like the steel blocks, so it especially ensured with, like, landing gears, like locking them even, or that there was a lot less issues than with the normal blocks.
Yeah.
I still wouldn't advise locking them, though, but I'm just saying that it's less issues.
And that's one of the more interesting things also. If you have, say, like a connector replacing one of these, and, you know, kind of like over here on the Archer, you notice...
much better.
Yeah, exactly. So the landing gear doesn't stick down, so it's just the connector, and you don't have to worry about the landing gear wiggling out and exploding. Crazy exploding Space Engineer's death of the landing gears.
Yeah, absolutely. But one of the reasons, like I was mentioning, though, why I generally put my connectors on the back is, just like you, I tend to build my ships often slightly more on the wide side than on the high side. So in practice, when in storing, I can then stack them on top of each other, because they all connect in back. So if you have, for example, multiple connectors on the back, like with construction ships, you can literally stack them on top of each other.
Pretty much, yeah. So, alright, well, I guess I'll show off this guy here next. I ended up designing this earlier today. This is the longbow. The general idea was I started with the 2 large thrusters in the back that are stacked on top of each other. And the layout is based on my Fenris Corvette, which is like it's designed as a raider for servers. And I thought the idea looked cool for a fighter. And this runs on 3 batteries. I decided to go back with a battery design. And with just the 2 large thrusters, this accelerated from 0 to max speed in about 6.5 seconds, which is kind of slow for one of my fighters. So I ended up adding the 2 extra large thrusters on either side, and now it accelerates faster than any non-modded ship I've ever built. It accelerates to max speed in 3.55 seconds, which is actually faster than the ship that I had submitted to the fighter contest, which is the previous winner of fastest acceleration. So this thing, it is actually loaded, so this would actually also work in the fighter contest. It actually has less thrusters than required, but I consider this an interceptor. It's battery powered, just designed to get to the target as fast as possible, unload its weapons, and return home. It's capable of dogfighting, but since it only has 3 small thrusters up and down and then 2 to either side, its directional thrust isn't as good as some of my other fighters, but it's not bad, so it can still dogfight. But where the guns are mounted, it can still hit the nose if you maneuver and shoot too much. So the general idea is, with this ship, you shoot and you run, and you shoot and you run until you're out of ammo, and then you run some more.
I've noticed that's the general tactic with any weapon in Space Engineers, considering otherwise you might shoot things you don't want to shoot.
That is true. Well, like most of my fighters, you know, like the Tempest sitting out there, the fighter that was originally going to be for the contest, where the guns are mounted, it doesn't hit the ship at all in any way. Like, you can maneuver it at any speed and it's not going to hit.
That's because they're sticking out and on the sides.
Very true. There are designs I've had where they're in the nose, and that works really well, but, you know, I didn't want to break up the aesthetics. I do like aesthetics as well. So I ended up putting the rockets in the little winglets you see there, which they also hold 2 of the 3 batteries. It has an oxygen tank inside. I think I added, yeah, it's got 2 small cargo containers for extra ammunition if need be. And yeah, it's fast as hell. Let me unowner it. Yeah, even side thrust, you can see how sluggish it can be. Woo, woo. There we go. Get it outside.
Well, did you ever see my video with Dracul about the Green Goblin I made? That thing was quite fast as well. When I built it, I was never really intentionally building it fast, but it was. I had the same issue that you were just having, that if you pressed forward, that you shut off like a badass. Like, oh shit, I can't control it.
Well, if you want, feel free to give that thing a ride, which I will probably. Sorry, my mic. Yeah, look at that thing go. Oh, it's so damn fast.
Well, let's tell you how it does in the turning, though.
Yeah, so like I said, it kind of slides side to side a bit, and even
a bit sluggish in the turn compared to the other one.
Yeah, even though it is lighter, but it has so much less thrust. Because the Tempest over there actually has 4 small thrusters on either side, and that one only has 2. So yeah, it slides. But like I said, it's a hit and run interceptor. It's not really a fighter. I love watching other people fly fighters. Like, I love seeing them buzz around. Now,
well, there's one thing. If the guns of the ship would stick out for the forward, though, the sliding motion can give you quite an active way to shoot and keep going sideways. Because, like you know, I'm going sideways now, but I'm pretty much aimed at you.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, at medium speeds, I'd say like 50 meters per second or below, it's not bad. But once you get to higher speeds, which, I mean, that thing's designed for higher speeds, whoop, turning sideways, the guns start tearing into the tip of the nose. So, like I said, it's more of a hit and run anyway. So usually you just go head on with the target and then keep going.
How many gyros does this got?
Only 2. Yep.
Alright, nice.
Yeah. Here, I'm going to go ahead and give this a quick run so my viewers can see how this thing handles. And I'm at max speed. Yeah, it takes off like a bat out of hell, and I like its like missile-like shape, and it also looks more like a space fighter than a lot of my other fighters do. I don't know, I feel like it's got a mix between what you'd expect out of like a TV show mixed with like a realistic look to it, though the thruster placement wouldn't actually work in space.